Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel, Enhancing Degree Value and Job Readiness for Learners. I'm so excited to be here with this extraordinary panel of innovators in higher education to talk about what they're doing to serve learners around the globe. Let me introduce myself. I'm Quentin McAndrew. I'm Coursera's academic strategist, and my job is to have conversations just like this all over the world. I have the best job. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I'd like to introduce you to our esteemed panelists today. Kelly Otter is joining us from Georgetown. She's the Dean of the School of Continuing Studies. Georgetown is launching a bachelor's completion degree in liberal studies on Coursera. Robert McDonald, Senior Vice Provost of Online Learning and Dean of the Libraries at Boulder. Boulder already has 3 degrees on the Coursera platform, a Master's of Science in Electrical Engineering, a Master's of Science in Data Science, a Master's in Engineering Management, and as of today, we've just announced a Master's of Science in Computer Science. Jen Sarowick from HALT, Head of Online Learning, and HALT is an internationally 3-time accredited, if I've got that right, MBA learner that serves global learners in a very international space. Right. And Ken Christensen, Interim Provost for Illinois Institute of Technology and Professor of Engineering, and very ambitiously just announced 4 new degrees on Coursera to launch in the fall: an undergraduate completion degree in information technology, a master's degree in information technology, a master's degree in data science, and a Master's of Business Administration. Did I remember them all? This is a long list.
You got it right.
I'm so excited, too, about this panel because each university is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Kelly, Georgetown is a landlocked, small, Jesuit tradition, Go Hoyas basketball school. Boulder is a flagship public university in Colorado. Jen, as I said, very international. And Ken, urban environment and majority non-white student base. So I love the range of panelists and thinkers that we have who are coming from different perspectives and different kinds of institutions. So Robert, I'm going to start with you, and I want to tell a little story. Boulder is a longtime partner of Coursera, and actually I joined Coursera from Boulder. And I got the great opportunity to lead some learner research last summer at Coursera, and we talked to learners and said, what do you want? And we discovered that there are about 1 million to 2 million learners on our platform today that we are not serving with the degrees on our platform. And they told us, they said, we want technical degrees that lead to jobs. The price is a huge barrier. The application itself is a huge barrier. I'm a working adult. I want to be treated like an adult. The effort of collecting a transcript is too much trouble. The effort of applying and waiting. If I'm a working adult, I want to start now. So they want performance-based admissions, and you just heard from the visionary panel before us the importance of industry credentials alongside the durable degree. So we did this research, and then I recused myself from the next step, which was we looked at our current degree partners and said, who's most like this? And Boulder rose to the top. So I went in with a colleague of mine from Coursera, and we met with Robert, and we met with the Executive Vice Provost, Ann Schmiesing, who's here with us today, and we said, we have an idea for you. You have a highly successful Master's in Data Science on the Coursera platform. It's beating its enrollment targets. It's been up for about a year, so the legs aren't quite under the degree yet. We want you to drop the tuition by 25%. And this was in October. And we said, and we'd really like you to do it by January 2nd. And Robert and Ann kind of sat there and smiled, and they were holding their cards kind of close to the vest. And my colleague Brett and I went out in the hall, and they said, well, they didn't kick us out of the provost suite, so I think we're doing all right. And Robert and I walked over to the library, which is about a 10-minute walk, and we're chatting because we had another big degree portfolio meeting with a lot of people from Boulder and Coursera. By the time we got to the library, we both pulled out our phone, and Ann had been trying to call us. And she said, I talked to the provost, he talked to the chancellor of Boulder. We want to talk to the president of the CU system this afternoon. We need a one-pager. And so Robert has this big screen in his office, and Ann is in the administrative center, and Robert's in his office, and they keep saying, what's Coursera's position on this? And I'm telling them. And they went to the president of the university system that afternoon and gathered support for the idea of doing what's right for learners and dropping their tuition by 25%. So the moral of this story is universities can work quickly. So Robert, I'm super curious about this moment because it was really mind-blowing. It's extraordinarily exciting. It felt like we showed up at the right time, that there was already a conversation happening at the University of Colorado system and at Boulder. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think, that just goes to show what it's like when you have a great team working with you, because you can get things done really quickly. But, a lot of the innovations that you talked about in our degree programs, whether it's data science, electrical engineering, or engineering management even, those came from our faculty. And that's one of the most exciting things about my job is I get to hear these pitches from faculty where they want to try new things or do something completely different and try it out. And then, that's my job, is to figure out how that's going to align with our policies and everything else for the credentials. But that is the best thing about my job is hearing this every day. And so we were able to do that pretty quickly because we had been on a move with online for quite a while. And we had formed several teams across the campus to take a look at how we do operational roles. Our big strategic plans called Academic Futures that we worked on a few years ago before the pandemic, but we're really able to run with that now because of the agile teams we put together to make that happen. And I think you saw that from the work we did that afternoon to kind of take that to our president of our system to tell him what we were going to try to do. And we were able to move from that time frame in October or so to the move in December to lower the price. And it makes sense from your surveys because that's where the IRS tax incentive is for students if they were going to do that program over a 3-year time period.
And how's that price drop worked out in terms of enrollment? How's the data science degree
Well,
doing?
I think you saw from Jeff's slide, we are at 1,300 learners now. It really improved, uptake for us. I think, we need a little more time with this. We agreed to do this pilot, for a 3-semester kind of time frame, which is for us 6 different terms. And it looks really good right now.
And Ken, so speaking of moving quickly, I think my first visit with someone from Illinois Tech was in June, so less than a year ago. And we came in and the rest of the Coursera team came in, and it just felt like there was this clear mission alignment from the very beginning. It was really extraordinary. And here you are as interim provost of Illinois Tech, getting ready to launch 4 degrees at once. Very ambitious. Can you talk about that kind of synergy and why Illinois Tech is embarking on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think as Robert said, it takes a great team, and that goes from our faculty and staff through our leadership. And that's how you move the needle quickly. For those that aren't familiar with Illinois Tech, we were founded in 1890 with a mission of providing educational opportunities for people from all walks of life. And at that time, it meant the children of the meat packers and the steel workers on the south side of Chicago. We view our mission today similarly, but we view this entry into the online space in partnership with Coursera as a renewal of that mission in bringing our academic excellence across the globe. And so this partnership with Coursera really is a match made in heaven with our institution in the notion of democratizing access to education. Equity and access to education is critically important to our institution. And workforce readiness upon graduation is our North Star as an institution. And so the alignment of the 4 degrees that you mentioned, Quentin, all of which have industry credentials built into the programs themselves. And we have a long-standing history of doing that on our campus in our in-residence degree programs already. And so we're really proud to be bringing that philosophy to these online degree programs. And so this opportunity to put our academic excellence on display and make it accessible in ways that Boulder has shown is quite possible and very successful is very exciting for our institution. And so we're very proud to become a part of the Coursera community, both learners and partners.
And so if Ryan from the visionary panel is watching, you would have raised your hand on the Salesforce.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we are doing Salesforce certifications within some of our academic programs, and we're really proud to be doing that.
And Kelly, the Georgetown Bachelor Completion Degree in Liberal Studies on Coursera, Georgetown ranked 25th nationally in national universities, an elite university, very competitive entry requirements for campus programs, and now you've created a highly accessible degree. Can you talk a little bit about the tuition, about your strategy, your vision, and how you brought Georgetown to this moment?
Well, absolutely. And as you know, it took us a little bit longer than an afternoon to get approval. We got to know each other very well in that process. So Georgetown, through the School of Continuing Studies, very much has a social justice, access, equity, affordability mission. And so through our school, we're able to live out that mission. And so we've had a Bachelor of Liberal Studies since 1974, which was designed to serve that adult degree completer, even back in that period of time. But what we found over time is that we were losing our students. The numbers were declining, and that was counterintuitive because that population of adult degree completers is growing. It is actually the largest number of undergraduate learners in the nation. The minority, 30-40% or so, are actually studying in full-time residential programs, and even fewer than that actually complete in 4 degrees. So what we found is that the numbers were declining. So we decided to partner with Coursera so that we could more aggressively reach our audience through taking the program online, which we had started to do, and we definitely saw some uptick. But we needed to do it more quickly, and we needed to do it in a fulsome, strategic way. And we really wanted to take the price point from $984 a credit hour down to $400 a credit hour.
So more than, what's that, 60%?
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. So
English majors can do math.
so if you were to calculate if a student were to come in with no credits, which it's very rare for adult degree completers to do that, the degree would have been about $120,000 total.
Wow.
But now, with the price point dropping, it will be about less than $50,000 for the entire degree. Now, it's a very different experience, and it's a different market. The residential program, we're probably not unusual, having about a $60,000 a year price point for a residential full-time program. With a completely different kind of immersive experience. Our students are adults, they're working, they want a professionally oriented and liberal arts degree. So we're launching next month, numbers are looking pretty good, and we're very excited about what's to come.
I want to come back to this idea that it's a different experience on Coursera and embracing that. But Jen, as you know, I saved you for last because you're one of these things is not like the others. And our first 3 panelists who are talking are content creators on the Coursera platform, and they're hosting degrees on the platform, and they're looking at that platform and saying, 118 million learners from all over the globe, we want to serve those learners. And Jen Halt came in from the Coursera for Campus side, so the right hand, the bottom right corner of Jeff's triangle, and said, wow, 6,000 open courses, 250,000 clips. This is an extraordinary treasure trove of really high quality content and educational experiences provided by Coursera partners. What can we do with that? So could you talk about your online MBA?
Sure, and we love to be different. It's really Holt's motto, so I appreciate being the one that's different. Yeah, so we're using this across all of our graduate programs, and this really started with our online program and our online program, hopefully we'll get to this a little bit later, but is not a traditional online program because we have quite a bit of virtual synchronous learning, and that's because we needed our online programs to be accredited. We're triple accredited, as you mentioned, so just like our campus programs, and our accreditors want to see, they want to see cohort learning and they want to see live learning. So we do have a significant portion of virtual synchronous. So we are embedding Coursera primarily in our asynchronous courses for our online student population. And this is pretty new. We haven't actually graduated anyone yet. We've been in this for about a year and a half. So our faculty curate Coursera content, and it lives in our Canvas platform, and it's supplemental. And we can talk a little bit about the faculty reaction, which has been overwhelmingly positive. Our faculty love this resource. So it's embedded in those asynchronous courses. Our faculty, as I mentioned, curate the content. They provide videos to introduce the content. They help students understand the content and relate it to the learning outcomes of the course. We also have launched Coursera across our traditional full-time graduate programs. So these are our one-year intensive on-the-ground programs. We have programs at all 4 of our campuses in Boston, San Francisco, London, and Dubai. And everybody's using Coursera, and the learners have responded really well. So in that scenario, faculty will use Coursera as a resource to what they're doing in class. It actually lets them get to we only have these students for a year, so Coursera has helped us sort of supplement the skills so that they don't need to use that precious time. With only a year with students, we really want to get to the things that Holt believes are the most important part of our degree, which are the leadership, that live kind of the live interaction, and our business challenges. So we use Coursera to bring these skills to that. So that's how we're using it.
So you're really ahead, again, referring back to the visionary panel and this idea of it has to be invented here for a university to have credibility, to extend our brand, to represent our brand and our faculty well. Your faculty actually came on board and said, look, this is going to serve learners, it's great content. Maybe I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but maybe from what you're saying, maybe it saves me from needing to ask my learners to pick up some remedial skills in class. I can spend class doing what I need to do and use Coursera courses is that an accurate assessment of?
Absolutely. I was talking to one of our marketing faculty yesterday, and he gave me an example about the 4 Ps of marketing, right? And rather than take class time to do that, we pull Coursera content, and he gets to talk more about that, about the application of that. So absolutely, they really kind of has set them free to do what they love doing, which is getting to the content that they're so passionate about. We also at Holt really believe that it's our job to bring learners what they need. Our degree is innovative, and we are all about, we'll talk about our curriculum, but we're all about relevant skills. And I think we just don't make the assumption that we have the market on them, but we do make the assumption that it's our job to point our learners towards those. I mean, with all those thousands of courses and all the content out there, our faculty are able to point our students to the ones that are most relevant, most true, most impactful for their learning.
Yes. Extraordinary combination. And I'm getting questions from the audience on my iPad, so keep them coming. So, for the 3 of you, does it hurt your brand to lower your price? Does low price cheapen the learning or the faculty effort? That's a question from our audience. How would you respond? Kelly. Kelly's eyebrows are raised, so I'm going on her first.
Personally, I have never seen a strong, high-quality institution that made its education more accessible suffer in terms of its brand.
Wow, that's a great point.
That's how I would argue that. And I just don't think that has happened. So I'm not at all concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, my take on this is that it really helps expand your reach and access to your programs. We have excellent world-class programs, but not everybody's going to be able to come to Boulder to take those programs. And so that's what we're being able to do with this. And, our planning for campus really states it really well in terms of teaching excellence in any modality. And so that's what we're hoping to promote through this and also reach outside of Boulder, outside of our state and our region.
Ken?
Yeah, we feel the same way. It's really about enabling accessibility, but I also think that there is a ton of brand recognition that we can all take advantage of through these types of initiatives that will actually enhance our in-residence, more traditional learning experiences as well. And I think, you can't forget that particular benefit that comes from doing this.
And Jen, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I mean, one size doesn't fit all, and higher ed has to get there. You know, a one-year full-time MBA is just not accessible or realistic for a lot of students. So, you know, students are buying the product that they need, and that's going to work for their lives. So,
What really struck me when we were thinking about our communication plan for Boulder dropping the price on January 2nd, we had internal conversations because, of course, you try to anticipate anger as well as delight and have a plan for how you're going to communicate. And it was so interesting to me to sit in this meeting and say, okay, if a learner is frustrated because they didn't get they just graduated in December, and how do we deal with that? And we got kind of caught up in this negative circle, and then all of a sudden we said, wait a minute, this is amazing how hard it can be to do what's right for the learner. And once we said, no, wait, this is right, this is the right thing to do, it clarified everything for us. We have another question. What are your experiences in the accreditation process, and any considerations in terms of these innovative degrees that you all had to think about? Jen, you're triple accredited. Maybe you could talk about that, and particularly about embedding Coursera content from our partners into your curriculum, and then I'll spread it out to the rest of the panel.
yeah, as I mentioned, we view the online degree the same that we do our campus degree. So it's the same curriculum, it's the same learning outcomes, it's the same faculty. So, you know, we have it's the same, it's just delivered differently. So we were very careful about the way, and I mentioned, you know, we do cohort learning. So it's not like a traditional online, you know, your programs are very flexible. People can kind of start and stop and start it multiple times. So we bring our students through in cohort, which we believe builds team building and engagement. So, and we look at Coursera like another resource, like we would a textbook, or something that a faculty might curate from, you know, from outside resources. So, no, we haven't had an impact with our accreditors.
Any accreditation thoughts from the?
So my answer is the same as Jen's. We're taking the same program, the same faculty, and we're moving it onto the platform. So the learning outcomes, the content, the subject matter, the expectations, the assessments are all equal to and probably enhanced now that we're actually working with a team of people who we feel are partners as educators. And we're looking at more ways to make the experiences more robust, more interactive, more flexible, and to be thinking about the professional opportunities as well.
Okay, but let me challenge you a little bit, because you said earlier it's not the same experience. So talk about that a little bit, and where you find value in changing the delivery mode, because that's what you're really saying. It's the same curriculum, it's the same program, same faculty. The mode of delivery is different.
Sure.
Can you talk about that?
It is a different experience. So we could look at the stark contrast of the residential student who lives at school, right? Their entire life is immersed in attending college. They may work part-time, but largely they live there. They're in classes with their roommates oftentimes. They develop close relationships with their faculty, with their programs. But adult students, even those who may want an in-person experience, have very busy and very complicated lives, and they need to have their educational experience be able to adapt to that. So while it may be different in terms of modality and how they gain access to these relationships, they still are having the opportunity to immerse themselves in a very highly interactive experience that is it's highly relational. It involves teamwork. It involves developing enduring lifelong relationships with your faculty, with students. So yes, it's different, but the quality is very high because you don't have to sacrifice your profession, your family life, and all of those other parts of your life that are just as important.
Yeah, we feel similarly, and I think from an accreditation standpoint, in fact, a lot of the faculty buy-in that we were able to garner is because it's the same degree program, it's the same learning outcomes, it's the same faculty, same expectations. It is a different experience though, right? And in-residence program has many more electives available, or the immersion of with your cohort and the like. And so that also then argues for a differentiated price point. And so I think it's all really connected in that space. But again, the opportunity to learn and the opportunity to take advantage of the academic excellence that's offered through these programs, and the innovation that comes through the things that are being done to help immerse students in the experience in a remote manner, I think really just speaks to how far we've come in being able to provide that accessibility to high-quality education.
Anything to add, Robert?
It goes back to that teaching excellence in any modality. It's a different experience, but it's the same instruction. We worked a lot with our accreditors, the first time, because we kind of had to show that it was the same thing. But then once we were able to demonstrate that, the rest of the degrees have come along pretty quickly.
And I think also Adam Fine, who was on the panel before us, said to me at UPSEA, these learners, it's last chance learning. The adult learners that we're reaching, if they don't succeed, if they don't find a program that suits them, if they can't get in, if they can't afford it, there is nothing else. There's not a fallback by the time they're coming back for a degree. And so it's also a very different student population who aren't coming to campus at all. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that's important for all of us to keep in mind. And speaking of admissions processes, Robert, Boulder offers pure performance-based admissions. There's no application anytime. That actually means that a learner, in fact, the first graduate from a Boulder program did not have an undergraduate degree. Was that an issue for faculty or accreditation or from a policy point of view? How'd that work out?
Well, there was a lot of discussions back and forth when we first went with the performance-based model for electrical engineering, because people, assumed that might happen, and sure enough, it did right out of the gate, pretty much. But I think at the end of the day, right, we were reaching that learner where he or she was at, at the time, because that particular person had been working in the industry quite a while, took time during the pandemic to upskill and reskill in some different areas and get some credentials, and went right through our program really successfully. So, there's a lot to be said from the learning that went on in that person's life before they came back for that degree. Mm-hmm. But I think it goes to show that by meeting the learner where they're at that way and having the performance-based admissions, you're removing a lot of the barriers from getting into that program and learning something new and deciding if that program's for you, whether you just take a few certificates away or whether you get the whole master's degree.
And Ken, what really struck me when we visited Illinois Tech and we met with the administrators in their enrollment management offices for undergraduate and graduate education, and I gave a presentation on Boulder's performance-based admissions model and the value that our learners see in it and everything. And then I stopped and I was sort of waiting for all the slings and arrows to come my way. And everybody sat around the table and said, "This is a great idea." And I said, "Wait, I'm supposed to persuade you. I need to do my job." And can you talk about why the moment was right for Illinois Tech?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I spoke before, equity and access to education is core to our mission. We've worked really hard to eliminate barriers to access to our educational programs for our in-residence learners for many, many decades. And so this was just a new version of that. And ensuring that, that an individual's competency is what drives their entry and eventual success in the programs, rather than hurdles of, test scores and reference letters, and the fact that in an application-based evaluation of a student, you lose the ability to quantify their competency based on career experiences. And of course, many of the learners that we're all trying to access have very diverse career experiences that have led them to lots of different competencies that are relevant to entry into these types of programs. So the performance-based admissions approach really puts the success in the hands of the student, and the students that we believe will come to the table, and I think at Boulder this is coming to fruition as well, are students that are driven for success and driven for that career pivot or growth, and giving them this opportunity where there is no blockade. It's simply about show what you know, and then we will celebrate that success and entry into the program and provide you with that educational opportunity. I think just is the way that higher ed should be moving to a much more inclusive, accessible notion of access to education.
And what you're saying is it's not that everyone can get in. I can't get into the electrical engineering degree. I can't do photonics for sure at a graduate level, but everyone can try and demonstrate and perform, and it puts it in the hands of the learner. Now, Kelly, Georgetown doesn't have performance-based admissions, but you've worked on the application and the admissions process. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. It really is the same process, but what we're looking for is ways to demonstrate or have the student demonstrate they'll be a successful learner. So we're not requiring test scores. We're looking at their transcripts, looking at what kind of students they were in the past. We're looking at what kind of work opportunities they have had. So we're finding those ways that will allow the student to tell us why they're choosing the program, what they are hoping to gain from an education, what their pursuits are, and how well they recognize and can articulate that. And we find that to be a very successful predictor of success within the programs. And I also just wanted to mention, building on what Ken said, that the typical profile that we have right now of our students is the average age is 34, about 50% women and men of color, and about 50% women and men. We have a very high number of military-connected students, and that's the group. We want to go from, say, 260 to 2,000, 3,000, right? That's the group. Often, I forgot to mention first generation. So we need to reduce the barriers and increase the opportunity and provide that very rigorous, interactive experience along the way. And that, we think, is a huge contributor toward access that will lead to equity and more economic equity.
Great. And Jen, I now have a question for you because I know the answer. And I was blown away when you told me this, and it's coming from the audience, which is, how often do you update your curriculum and refresh it and keep it new for the learner? So
Yeah.
Holt is going to hit this one out of the park, so here's your softball question.
Oh, thank you. I like to tell my colleagues I'm a recovering traditional academic now at Holt because I am astounded by the pace at which we move. So we really look at our curriculum every year. Now, do we make major changes? No. We're not going to, change a whole lot, but Holt is really passionate about making our curriculum tied to what is relevant now, what employers are looking for now, what our students need for job readiness. So we look at the curriculum and what worked last year, what didn't work. We really look at, we really take student satisfaction very seriously. We're surveying them all the time to find out what's working for them. So the core curriculum gets tweaked every year. And then where we really get to be innovative is with our electives. All of our master's programs have built-in specializations where students can choose electives to do that. And we add 20 new electives every summer. So based on what's happening and what's going on and what faculty.
That's my worst nightmare.
I know. But it's exciting that the curriculum, we have all the same, we have all the same guide rails in place. We have a curriculum committee. They just meet quarterly instead of, they meet a lot. And so we're able to be very nimble, very quick, and it allows faculty to bring their research interests and what they've discovered into classes. So the electives that are constantly changing and being added every summer is pretty extraordinary.
Well, I love that contrast too, because we often talk about the value of an industry credential as just-in-time learning, skills-based learning, but what you're saying is faculty have cutting-edge research that you're able to infuse in your curriculum. I see Ken smiling, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this really points to the need for higher ed to become much more nimble and dynamic, right? And go from glacier timescales in some instances to really reflecting the timescales of industry and humanity. And this idea that we have an evolving landscape. One thing that really clicked it for me in terms of how rapidly things are changing is the half-life of a cybersecurity education is between 18 and 24 months. Okay? And so what that really points to is how dynamic we have to be, not just in the baseline education, but in the fact that we need to think about learning as a lifetime value chain. and that institutions like ours can really be the foundational element of that opportunity for continuous learning, lifelong learning, that we're providing things that are relevant in time. And by allowing faculty to integrate their own expertise and their own capabilities and their own ingenuity through their research and otherwise into that, really does put our students and these learners at the forefront, particularly in technology-based fields.
Kelly, I see a lot of agreement there.
Oh, yeah. I think that the access affordability is a reality that we're continuing to face. The structures of our institutions are just really built around a different day and time. One of my favorite sayings is that our institutions were built in the 19th century and they're taught by people from the 20th century for people in the 21st century, right? So the anachronism is built in, right? It's baked into our structures, and we really need to be doing more of this kind of work, thinking about what the needs of the 21st century are, because the changes are happening so quickly, and so our ways of thinking about and elevating our pedagogies and our collaborations need to keep pace with that.
And Ken, for you, a question from the audience. Are any of the panelists using Coursera's professional certifications? And let me broaden that out just a bit, with apologies to the person who asked the question. When we came and began our discussions with you, and we said, and learners want industry credentials and alongside, and there's sort of this, yeah, we do that. We do that already. Thanks for your advice, Coursera, but we're way ahead of you. Can you talk a little bit about your mission around job readiness and industry inclusion in your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So as an institution, we've always had a history of focusing on workforce readiness. Of course, we want our students to be well-rounded humanists, but also well-rounded technologists. And I would argue that the humanist skills are important for our students to understand the context of some of the challenges that they will face and how to approach them. But really, the technology advances that have been made and the sort of areas that my institution is focused on in technology, those are the skills that allow them to do. And industry credentials provide them with real-world experiences before they complete their degree. So they're well-trained in how to take their knowledge and apply it to effective practice. And in the panel before, we heard about learners becoming productive in their jobs 4 to 6 months into being hired. And our goal as an institution is to shrink that gap as small as possible. And so we have a long history of giving credit for industry credentials within some of our degree programs. And the mass of credentials that are available on the Coursera platform, we're just drooling at the mouth at the opportunity for our students to take advantage of that and integrate those within their experiences. I'll call out our Master of Data Science program, which on the on-campus version has 6 credit hours of industry practicum. So we actually have industry projects that come to bear in that program on campus. We're mirroring that in this Coursera offered program through the accessibility to credentials. But I think it really is an important differentiator for our students so that they're ready day one to have impact in their first job or whatever job they're in now.
So let me hold the other panelists' feet to the fire a little bit. How about all of you? Do you offer credit for prior learning for industry certificates into your degree programs?
For us at Boulder, not yet, although we are working at a prior learning assessment policy for the campus. And part of that's coming from interest in that topic from the state and how that plays out, in the education ecosystem for the state. But we do see much more, like Ken was pointing out, opportunity there for capstone projects. And we have that built into our data science program in Coursera now, and I think that's a good starting point for a lot of places that are interested in this, because professional schools historically have always had those types of capstones to connect to business use cases, right?
And Jen, what about HALT?
Yeah, And actually, one of our admission requirements is professional experience, so you need to be a working professional to come in. So we're thinking about it. We're the specializations that I mentioned, where students are taking electives. We're thinking about how can we give students more choice, open up the whole suite of Coursera certifications to include them, so that our learning and our degrees really can be personalized based on the student's interests. So we're looking at that as well.
And where's Georgetown? Ranked 25th in the country, elite school. What's the temperature around industry certificate?
Well, we do accept CLEP, so we're very generous with our CLEP, and we do offer our own.
Can you describe what CLEP is for our
It's a
audience?
college level examination program. Is that accurate? Is that okay?
Thanks.
Yes, I think so. Students can take, for a small fee, they can take an examination and demonstrate competency, mastery of traditional areas. So we're very generous with that. However, that isn't necessarily work-related, right? It's more traditional, the traditional discipline. So we might want to rethink that. But we are working on trying to build a mechanism so that people who've taken non-credit certificates or professional certificates can stack that into our degree. We're absolutely open to it, but it's something that we need to build.
Well, it's really interesting. In a conversation that we were having yesterday, someone at the table said a lot of community colleges are offering industry certificates for credit, and in fact, Lisa Gevelber from Google has pioneered a lot of this across the country. And if that credit is coming in for an industry certificate from a community college, we all accept it.
That's right.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of irony there, and perhaps some impetus to begin to offer credit for prior learning. I have a question for all of you, and I want to reflect my own maybe too limited thinking around industry certificates, because when I began really working on this idea of how would this work, and as Coursera's academic strategist, how do I communicate this out to our partners? And I thought, well, these industry certifications on the Coursera platform are foundational, elementary education, perhaps undergraduate. And yet we have an undergraduate degree, a second undergraduate degree, and a plethora of master's degrees. So do the industry certificates belong next to a master's degree, or do they need to be elevated content to belong next to a master's degree? Just super curious about what your ideas are about that.
Well, I
Were
think,
you going to say something, Kelly?
I think it depends on the competency levels, right? I think we have to think about what are the levels of mastery of what kind of competencies. And is it the nomenclature of undergraduate, graduate, or are we looking at the kinds of abilities of thinking, the higher level thinking and analysis that is demonstrated by that particular credential? That's where I would start.
And I see all of you nodding, so Jen, we'll go to you.
I will, and I know we're not at the what were your challenges question yet, but I will point this out, this leveling, as one of the challenges. So looking through all of that Coursera content, how do we find the right level of content to fit into our master's degrees? So I think it is something we're working on, but I would definitely agree with Kelly, is that, a lot of it is, what do you need? What does your employer demand? And in some ways, we're building the foundational learning, that ability to learn how to learn at the undergraduate level, and then the master's level is a little bit different. But I think some of the challenge with embedding content in a graduate course is certainly something we're thinking about. But industry is industry, and they don't really care if it's bachelor's or master's.
Ken?
Yeah, I think I agree with what's been said. The other thing that I wanted to point out is, there's when you look at integrating these two things, there's the academic content, but I think the credential provides some of the context and the industry context. And so finding ways to weave those in and using that as real world value in applying the academic content that the students are learning at whatever level that might be, I think there's a lot of value in approaching it from that perspective. And then there are different levels of credentials that are available, and being able to stack that knowledge to a more sophisticated level and integrate that into more master's degrees versus undergraduate. I think one can think about doing that as well. But the way we view the credentials is really as the context and helping them position their academic knowledge in ways that are more productive for workforce readiness.
I'm going to steal that. That's a fantastic answer. Okay, a question from the audience. Are any of your programs including soft skills individuals need in order to be prepared for entering and or excelling in the workforce, or is it all about hard skills?
Go.
Jen.
Our whole program is about human skills. I think we've debated that,
Oh,
phraseology
I know,
of,
yes, yeah.
because
Thank
we
you.
realize how important they are.
Yeah.
But that's really at the core of what Holt believes in is those human skills. So, bringing it back to Coursera. Coursera is a way for us to supplement that, but we really do believe, to Jeff's presentation, those things that are long-standing, ability to thrive in chaos. I know that's not quite what it was, but yeah, definitely. That's what our whole MBA is working our students towards.
And Ken, you're a tech university,
Yeah.
so can you talk about the human and the heart of the technology?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's kind of at the heart of how we train our students. We have at the undergraduate level for our in-residence students, as well as in the undergraduate completion degree that we're launching, something called the Interprofessional Projects Program. And this is 6 credit hours required of all of our undergraduate students to work on a capstone project where we form teams from different disciplines. So a psychology student with a computer science student, an electrical engineer, and a business student solving an industry-sponsored project or a campus-sponsored project where they're able to cultivate these types of human skills and then leverage them in these projects. And so those are, as a technology-based institution, we understand how important those human skills are for our students to be able to operate in a global and very diverse economy, and the types of grand challenges that we're facing that are foundationally about humanity. And so you have to have those capabilities and those perspectives to really thrive.
Well, and Kelly, coming from a Jesuit university, it is humanist and discourse-based.
Absolutely. This degree is a liberal studies degree, so arguably we're drawing from the traditional disciplines in the humanities and the social sciences. But even in those pre-professional tracks, we still embed skills around ethical reasoning, and social justice. So when students are doing actual projects, case studies, or capstone, it must have some kind of a social impact at its core. So we're inviting students to think about who are the winners and losers, who controls resources. So ethical reasoning is embedded in anything that we do, whether it's social sciences, humanities, or more technical.
So let me turn the question on its head a little bit as the English major. Liberal studies, how is that job aligned? Really? I'm kidding.
Oh, so you're the one who's been blocking me. Of course, because we look at what is underneath that all-encompassing term, right? So a liberal education draws from so many disciplines. It draws from economics, from psychology, language, dance, theater. Again, arguably areas that can help a person become well-rounded and look at the connections among different disciplines, which allows one to think in an adaptable way. And I liked what Ken said earlier about being was it humanistically talented or focused as well as technologically? And I think that's what we're after as well. We also want technical literacy, numeracy embedded in these degrees as well.
So this is such an inspiring conversation. Let me bring it down a little bit. What about the challenges? What was, and this is a question from the audience, and I'm chuckling to myself because let us count the ways, let us count the challenges. But if you could summarize a little bit, and Robert, I'll start with you. What are the challenges, and how did you overcome them for launching these really innovative learner-first degrees that in a lot of ways are flying in the face of some closely held, comfort blankets? The application lets us vet our students before they arrive and things like that. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, for us, it really came from the departments themselves, because they saw that, what they wanted was to reach a different audience who was a, working adult, basically 25 to 35 or 40 years old. And that's why they went the route they did. Now, to get there, it was a lot of obstacles, especially for the first program. We had to form teams that really cut across all of our business units to take a hard look at it. A lot of dedication from all those groups, whether it's the registrar, the bursar, IT, and just a lot of obstacles to overcome. But at the same time, we were able to manage that. And then the second degree was a little bit easier. The third degree is a little bit easier. There's still some things that we're working out there, but at the same time, it was about supporting those departments in their vision for getting those degrees in this type of modality and to expand their reach.
And Jen, what about, you said that the faculty are really enjoying and appreciating having the library of extraordinary Coursera content provided by our partner ecosystem. What the first time this idea was proposed, how did the faculty respond? Was there change management, or was it always seen as a positive?
Well, we didn't make it mandatory, so we found our faculty champion. Anytime you're trying to change anything, you find the faculty who are game for anything. But I have to say again that Holt is a really different kind of a place, and faculty come there to be innovative. So it really wasn't a stretch for our folks. They were already doing innovative things. I'd say the challenge for us was finding the balance, since we are integrating all these fabulous partner, all that content. How do we find the balance so that the student has a seamless experience, so they don't feel like they're going, Holt somewhere else, Holt somewhere else. So part of it was working within our LMS. How do they actually click the link to get to the content and come back? So I think it's those two things, was just curating that extreme amount of content. So we're excited about the AI tool to start building, but also finding the right balance.
That's great. So Robert, here's a challenging question. I quite like this one. When you lowered the cost of tuition at Boulder, was there a sense that the degree was not as valuable as other degrees, or was it just underperforming? And so you lowered the cost of tuition to help it perform better?
Oh, I see. I get the question now. Well, I think that the big thing there was an experiment to try that particular tuition model and see how it worked. And we don't really have enough data yet to totally assess it. We just know what's gone right in the first term of it, right? So I think, yet to be seen on the success of that. But it really was about aligning with the research that Coursera did to try that particular thing out. And that was really the basis for it.
And I'll say the degree was very successful, in fact. And there was, even at Coursera, some nervousness about, is this the right thing to do? And I think some of our finance team may have had a little bit of a heart attack when we proposed this. But it was really about what is right for the learner, what will serve our learners. So, okay, we have another question here. For countries with large populations like India and China, where competition in the job market is really high, how do you think corporations consider these modern online degrees over traditional degrees offered by universities? Kelly, why don't you take a stab at that one?
So I guess depending on the country and the culture, right, well, I think one has to take that context into consideration when answering this. So I think that there is still a strong place for the traditional institutions. I think we have a lot of history. We do a number of things very well. We're very thoughtful. We're very prudent. I think the opportunity is really in the partnership, because we don't have the ability to scale. And so through partnership and collaboration, we can work with employers, we can work with other kinds of ed tech companies. Many are popping up all over the world, namely in India, doing incredible work. And it really is based on partnerships between traditional institutions and these innovative, technically optimized partners. So I think that there is awareness of the quality that is able to happen through that collaboration, and importantly, the ability to scale, to meet the demand, meet the need.
And there is a university partner that we're working with right now, and when I'm able to talk about them publicly, I promise I will cite this, but I was in a meeting with him and he said, and scale is about transforming more lives, yes. Quentin. And I thought, oh, of course it is.
That's right.
What a moment that is. Mm-hmm. We have a little bit of an in the weeds question, but how do you bring faculty on board to develop courses? Are you giving them stipends? And we only have 4 minutes, so I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me a super quick answer. Ken.
Yeah, I think stipends and finding the right faculty that find this as an innovative entrepreneurial activity,
That's right.
and it excites them personally. And I think the opportunity to pivot and do something different has excited a lot of our faculty to engage in that.
Stipends and support. We have a project manager who works with faculty to help them through the whole process. So that's a big part of it too.
Great, Robert.
Yeah, we actually use a royalty model for our courses, and then we have the both a stipend to support creation as well as support from our central group for that.
Kelly.
Similar. We have a stipend and a faculty director who has a team of instructional designers, graphic designers who support the faculty, but the faculty leads the project.
Okay, and thank you for whoever supplied the finishing question, which is quite brilliant. And I'll just go right back down the row here. Innovating and delivering online degrees is a lot of work in many ways, in almost every way. We are working against campus systems that are already built for scale to serve learners. So we're going in and saying, we want to maybe not break this, but we want to challenge this and create a special use case over here on the side. Why is it worth it to undertake this effort? Why do you do the jobs that you're doing today, or why did you leap in with 4 degrees with Coursera? So Kelly, why is it worth it?
Because we're teachers and our job is to educate. And there are learners who do not have access to education. And until every person on the planet has had access to an education that they want, then our work will be done. But we have a lot to do.
Robert.
Yeah, I think the same rings true for me. It's about reaching the learner where they're at. I grew up near great state universities, and that was a great opportunity for me, but not everybody gets the opportunity to do that. And we need to be able to use the technology that we have at hand to reach those learners in new ways so they can succeed as well.
Yeah,
Jen?
because we have to.
Yeah.
we just need to be changing and again access. And we didn't cannibalize our existing programs. We just extended them to people who wouldn't otherwise have access. So again, meeting the learner where they are.
Ken.
It's the learner first, right? And it's about access. And again, it's not about cannibalizing your existing population. It's actually about expanding access to many different learners at many different stages of their lives. And that's our responsibility as institutions of higher education.
Wow. Thank you all so much for this. I'm so inspired by this conversation, and I so appreciate your time. I know you're all busy. We're going to let you get back to work on the hard work of serving learners all over the globe. And I really want to thank the audience for your engagement and the great questions. You made my job really easy because I just had to read all the ideas that you had and what you wanted to hear from our panelists about. Thank you all, and let's go change the world together.